My name is Don K. Preston. I am the president of Preterist Research Institute of Ardmore, Oklahoma. We are actually coming down to the close of our study on 1 Corinthians 15 and the resurrection. I've been sharing with you that Paul's doctrine of the resurrection in 1 Corinthians 15 is directly parallel to Romans chapters 5 to 8. We've been focused particularly on Paul's comments in Romans chapter 8, where he links the then present suffering. I reckon that the suffering of this present time is not worthy to be compared with the glory that is about to be revealed. So here is Paul writing in the midst of the then present suffering, the then present persecution for being followers of Christ, but he tells them that vindication, glorification, manifestation, and resurrection is just around the corner. It's about to be revealed. They were standing on their tiptoes with their necks outstretched, looking for it and expecting to see it in their lifetime. What we have done then is to go through the New Testament and to show that this motif of present, first century, present suffering, persecution for the cause of Christ, and how it is always, just virtually in every case, set within the context of the promise of the imminent coming of the Lord, of the manifestation of the sons of God. The book of Revelation is absolutely saturated with this motif. I've already shared with you some thoughts on Revelation 3, 9 to 14. I want you to look at Revelation chapter 6, 9 and following with me very quickly, where John says, under the fifth seal, I saw under the altar those who had been slain, the souls of those who had been slain for the word of God and for the testimony which they held. And they cried out, Holy, how long, O Lord, holy and true, do you not avenge us on those who dwell on the face of the earth? Now, we could do a special word study just on the word avenge, Greek word ekdekesis, because this word, once again, is a word that is used in context after context after context of suffering, but the promise of vindication, the bringing of vengeance on the persecutors, and that vengeance was coming very soon. 2 Thessalonians chapter 1. Well, now notice we have martyrs, the souls of those who had been slain for the word of God and for the testimony which they held. They want vindication. They want vengeance on their persecutors who are on the earth. Do you see what's happening here? They are crying out for the judgment of the living, those who are on the earth, and the dead, i.e. of themselves. They're praying for the judgment of the living and the dead, which is nothing less, nothing other than the resurrection. White robes were given unto them, and they were told to rest for a couple of millennia, might be 1,000,000 years. Who knows when it might happen? No, that's not what it says, is it? They were told to rest for a little while until their fellow brethren, who should be slain as they were, should be fulfilled, should be completed, should be filled up. Do you remember Jesus in Matthew chapter 23, speaking about Old Covenant Jerusalem, had slain all of the righteous? They had slain all of the prophets. And Jesus said to that generation of Israel, of Judah, Jerusalem, fill up then the measure of your father's guilt. Behold, I send to you wise men and scribes. Some of them you shall crucify, shall scourge, shall chase from city to city, that upon you may come all of the righteous blood of all of the righteous shed on the earth. From righteous Abel, you know, Abel was never in Jerusalem, folks, unto Zacharias, son of Barachias. Do you see the comprehensive nature of this judgment that is being discussed in Revelation chapter 6? Do you see that it's the judgment of the living and the dead? Do you see that we have the same identical promise in Revelation chapter 6 of past suffering, the cry for vengeance, the cry for vindication, and the promise that the vindication and the vengeance on their persecutors was coming in a little while. But that little while would be when their fellow brethren, the number, the cup of suffering, would be filled up. This is Matthew 23. And Jesus said, "Verily I say unto you, this generation will by no means pass away until all of these things are fulfilled." All of these things will come upon this generation. When we examine the motif of then present suffering, remember, John said, Revelation 1 verse 9, "I am your brother in tribulation." The tribulation was already undergoing. It was in process. And he's writing to those who have been martyred, and the Lord promises them relief, vindication, vengeance on their persecutors when the number of the saints to be slain would be filled up. Folks, unless you can create a total chasm and a dichotomy between Matthew 23 and Revelation chapter 6, in regard to persecution, in regard to filling up the measure of sin, in regard to filling up the measure of suffering, and in regard to judgment coming in that generation, then that means that the great and the terrible day of the Lord of Revelation chapter 6 was the judgment coming in AD 70. But it also means that the resurrection of 1 Corinthians 15, which is relief, vindication, manifestation, glorification, and resurrection of Romans chapter 8, was to be in AD 70. We've got more from Revelation to demonstrate this pattern, this motif, then present suffering, the promise of imminent vindication at the resurrection, and the day of the Lord, which was coming very soon. We'll see you on the flip side.